The slap heard around the world. In my 32 years, I've never known anything go viral quite as quickly as Will Smith walking up on stage and slapping Chris Rock. I really want to know what happened in those 2 seconds when the camera was off him, from Will Smith laughing his head off to the moment he stormed on stage. The meme game coming out of this has been phenomenal, with some hilarious things coming out, but there's also been people that have attached this to various political causes such as gender, race equality, toxic masculinity and others. And what precedent does this incident set? Are we in a world now where if you don't like a joke you have the right to hit somebody? What does this mean for stand-up comedy? This is what me and Rob chat about in this bonus episode of the podcast, which was live on my Instagram at Kingsley Dutton. We talk about what we think of the incident, what precedent does it set moving forward, and what we think of some of the news headlines that's come out of this. So I really hope you enjoy this bonus episode of the show. As always, if you enjoy the show, please share on social medias tagging myself and Rob. And if you want to leave a 5-star review on your favourite podcast platform or support the show via buymeacoffee.com, we would really, really appreciate it. But I'll leave you with myself and Rob for this little bonus episode. The slap heard around the world. I'm coming on live a little bit early, just do a little bit of an intro to this and get people flowing in before Rob joins the live. I've known a lot of things go viral in the almost 32 years I've been on this planet, but I have never seen something go viral as quickly as this. The meme game, by the way, is fucking phenomenal. Some of the memes are just a thing of beauty. The Fresh Prince puns, the memes about him laughing before he walked up on stage and clocked the fuck out of Chris Rock. Like, top quality meme game. And we'll probably discuss a few of these when Rob gets on the call. But we're going to talk about the fact that, has this been hijacked? In typical 2022 fashion, this has become an issue of multiple things now. Toxic masculinity, it's been claimed as a racist thing. We don't need men to protect us was another argument. And I'm like, is this something that we want to be promoting? Should everything become this big political agenda? Or is this just an incident of Will Smith assaulting somebody in the Academy Awards? We're going to talk his Oscar. We're going to talk whether he, should have his Oscar stripped off him. And I'm not going to give my opinion on there. I know Rob has just joined here. Rob, whenever you're ready, man, click the join button and we'll get cracking. Hopefully. Here he is. How's it going?
Boom. We got it. We're good. Sleep was disrupted by everyone talking about Will Smith, but that's what we're going to do now.
I was saying before you came on, this is I've known a lot of things go viral in 32 years, but this is probably the most quickest anything has gone viral. It's the slap heard around the world. They've out WrestleMania a week before the show.
Oh wow!
I don't give a fuck about Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns anymore. I want to see Chris Rock, Will Smith.
100%, mate. 100%.
Have you heard, was it Manchester United or someone's offered millions for them to fight on an undercard of a boxing match?
I saw something like this. I think I saw Brian Rose promoting something, and he was like getting them two on the undercard.
Of course he was. Isn't he fighting some sort of like mayor candidate or something right now, Brian Rose?
Don't quote me on this. I think his name's down for a fight, but I don't know who else he's actually fighting. I know he was giving it the big one that he was going to fight the other mayoral candidates, but I think everyone just went, "Nah, you're all right, mate." Like, I'll just crack on. Yeah,
because you know full well, knowing Brian Rose, it'll be a boxing course soon.
Of course it will. Mate,
I used to really like that show. I used to really like him. I used to run into him in pod. And I doubt he'll ever listen to this. But his podcast he's still one of the best interviewers around. But it's just all crypto focused now. I can't get into it anymore.
It seems to be whatever the trend is at the time. And he's promoted a lot of scammy bastards, basically. A lot of scammy people. But that's Brian Rose.
Yeah. So moving on to the topic of the day. I mean, like, what was your initial thoughts
when you heard the news that Chris Rock got slapped across the face at the Academy Awards?
So I nearly watched it live. I was pretty much like, I woke up so early that day for a time, jumped on Twitter as I normally do. I should be journaling and meditating, but I go on Twitter as soon as I wake up. And they were literally streaming it live. And I swear within like minutes, it's already up. And I'm like, whoa, what the hell just happened? And this was before any censorship, because they immediately censored it all. Like there was no noise of Will Smith shouting. Like cameras had cut away all this. It was rare in the early hours before everyone memed it to see what was going on. My initial thoughts were not feeling sorry for Will Smith, but I did a video about this anyway, is that we were witnessing like the full-on emotional breakdown of a man who's had his marriage publicly scrutinised and criticised more than anyone else I know in recent times. Like we've already got memes about Will Smith crying as his missus reveals the affair on TV of all fucking places. I'm sure he already knew, of course, but you can see a clearly emotional man, and you see Will Smith quite a grounded, level-headed, positive character, screaming at the top of his voice, clearly holding back tears. His speech later that night was quite dark. My initial reaction was that geezer's going through something. Something's going on behind the scenes there. He's not happy, and that's quite a reaction. And then I left it at that. I did my meme, and I assumed that was it. That's it, done for the day. I weren't expecting it to turn into this giant media circus and the complete re-scripting of the situation by so many different people. Literally, just before I logged on, I see more and more stuff come up in my notifications, more theories about it. It's fucking wild.
It's an interesting point that you bring up about like watching a man sort of like go through a bit of a breakdown. Because it's a thing that sort of no one's touched on the psyche of Will Smith with this, and I can totally see that. Like I can imagine this man, because for a man, imagine like if he laughed, and this is the thing that a lot of people criticize. He laughed at the joke, and then he realised he didn't like the joke, and he went right. And it does strike you as a man who goes, "Okay, that was funny," and then go, "Oh, I need to make sure I make good on my marriage." So he took that U-turn. Like that's such a U-turn to take publicly. Unless there's something behind the scenes, sure.
And that was a dramatic U-turn. Like, didn't even say anything first. Didn't even say, "Get my wife's name out of your mouth," or like, "That's not funny," or anything like that. It was straight up and a slap. Like, that's not a rational reaction.
Do you think it's real? Because I didn't initially. Because it looked, he was right down the centre of the stage. Yeah. He walked up with a strut. He slapped. He turned around with the strut. But then Chris Rock stuttering over his words and generally looking like he was struggling to continue. Like, I wonder if the slap was sort of planned, but the outburst afterwards wasn't.
Maybe.
I don't know. What do you think on this?
I get the initial thoughts were, was it staged? Was this all a laugh? Like in the split second as it happened? But afterward, it was both of their reactions like that. Chris Rock, great comedian. Not necessarily the best actor in the world. That was some phenomenal fucking acting afterwards. If that was all staged, like in terms of how he was completely speechless for a second. Will Smith, again, phenomenal actor, but he was clearly holding back something at the end there as he was shouting at him, and I think that all came out, and all that emotion came out in his speech later that night. So I don't. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter that much to me because it doesn't affect my life. And Hollywood operates in its own weird circle anyway. Like, apart from that slap happening, who would have known the Oscars was even on? No one. No one would have known. So there is an argument that it was all staged to get ratings back, stuff up. And Hollywood's weird. And actors are weird. But I don't see the benefit of going this far. Like, what's in it for Will Smith or Chris Rock to humiliate themselves? They've got enough money. They've got enough publicity. I don't see, like, apparently ticket sales have gone up for Chris Rock's tour. I'm pretty sure it was close to sell out anyway. I don't know. So I don't see what's in it to have faked it.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's always controversy to put this thing on the map, right? And it's normally easy because Ricky Gervais just slates everybody. You know, and I'd love to have seen if it was The Rock on stage taking the mick out of his wife. Would he have still done it? You know, or was he gone? Is this a man who's always had the mick taken out of him a little bit? I find a smaller man on stage, and now, right, this is my opportunity. I don't know, but like, what's your thought on like before we get onto the reaction on the media afterwards? What's your reaction in the event? Because obviously he put out this apology today. This morning. And I thought he was genuinely sorry he would have apologised during his speech. And, like, no one seemed to pull him aside. Everyone was standing ovation when he came up for his award. And to me, doesn't that just send the message that violence is fine and acceptable as long as it's by an A-list celebrity? Or suggest the message that if you don't like a joke in 2022, it is okay to walk on stage and punch somebody.
This is a precedent that was set long ago in 2016. It's okay to punch a Nazi. It's okay to punch a far-right person, an alt-right person. We saw this. It's okay to attack comedians. And now it's coming to a point where we've just seen it live on TV well, it wouldn't have been in front of millions, but now it's in front of billions because of it going so memeable, you know? I think it sets a dark, dark tone because you can say, oh, well, hardly anyone's going to get up at comedy clubs to do this sort of stuff. I bet they flipping will. I flipping bet they will, man. So many comedians, Andrew Schultz, who is one of my favourites at the moment, who has already roasted Will Smith way, way harder than Chris Rock did, speaks about him getting punched on stage in his early days. And I'm sure multiple comedians have those stories of things getting thrown at them, verbal attacks, maybe not physical attacks, but verbal attacks. And if anything, this kind of enables it a little bit, maybe not directly. Will Smith isn't promoting people to go out and do that. People are dumb.
He also didn't apologise until his PR team got to him.
Until PR team got to it, and through an Instagram post. It's
I suppose we don't know what happened behind the scenes. We don't know if he reached out to Chris Rock personally, but it seems a bit trying to make do on his public profile more than it seems to be apologising for his actual actions that he actually felt bad.
Yeah. It's a weird one. I was speaking about this yesterday. This footage emerged of him now. He's partying later that night. And for me, I don't care. Like, I kind of think he's just won an Oscar for a phenomenal film. He kind of should. But it's weird watching him.
Do you think he should keep it?
Seeing happen. Hey?
Do you think he should keep his Oscar?
I don't see what taking it away actually does. It doesn't change anything. The events happened. The film wasn't like, if anyone deserved that Oscar, 100%. That film is phenomenal. His performance, as most of the time it is in, legit emotional films, is pretty damn good. I don't see what taking it away does, especially not this late in the game where no security jumped on stage to stop him before or afterwards. Doesn't look like anyone spoke to him about it. His after party was still allowed to go ahead. Okay, then now the Academy's looking into it, only because there's so much noise about it now.
It's the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the Academy Awards equivalent of Will Smith apologising 24 hours later.
Yeah.
It's the Academy Awards going, ooh, maybe this doesn't look good that we let that happen. But they didn't stop it happening either.
No. And again, like, Hollywood then continues to operate in its own little weird self-serving circle. If they take it away, who does it actually matter to except for Will Smith? I'm sure in the grand scheme of things, we haven't heard from him yet, but I'm sure in the grand scheme, Chris Rock doesn't actually care if that award's taken away or not. It doesn't affect anyone's life. It makes us feel a bit more justified that something's been done about it, because obviously, criminal charges, but that's up to Chris Rock. And it's not really, come on. Even if he did press charges, how far is that going to go? It's a slap, really.
Yeah.
It's not. He was coherent afterwards. He could still carry on with his job. It's, it's not that much of a criminal offence.
I think Hamlet and Pro.
Pretty much. Like Will Smith's a big guy. Big guy. And that had a full-on rotation of the hip and a follow-through. That was in terms of slapping, that was a good slap.
Yeah, I remember Luke Lehman posted the other day criticising the amount of rotation of the hip, and I meant only Luke turns this into a performance post. I fucking love it. Shout out to Luke Lehman.
Yeah.
Going on to what we want to talk, we were going to talk about with it, because this sort of follows on nicely from the podcast we did a couple of weeks ago about mental health in general, but men's mental health, but how things get hijacked so quickly these days. It started with Mr. with the hair no longer can be a Mister. Continued with James Bond. Went into comedians getting cancelled left, right, and centre. And the things that I've heard, I don't know what you've heard, but I've heard this be blamed on toxic masculinity. And for anyone who hasn't listened to Mine and Roll's podcast a couple of weeks ago. Cheap plug, go listen to it. What is that word even mean? Like, so many different definitions. I've heard women say, we don't need men to protect us. Okay. And I've also heard racism things as a race thing. I mean, what have you heard, and what are your thoughts on the hijacking of this?
I've heard more race-related things than anything else. Her condition shouldn't be made fun of. I hate to say it, it's not life-threatening. You know, I'm sure it causes some mental anguish, but she also seems to be owning it quite well.
Yeah. Do you think that when it comes to, on that point, you mentioned about her condition is not something to be joked about. When you start deciding what people, what conditions, what anything is joked about and not joked about, where does that stop? Where does my problems become more important than your problems? What can you make a joke about? And the thing I always think about with comedians, and this is the thing in general with comedians at the moment, I don't necessarily think Chris Rock doesn't like people with alopecia. I don't think Jimmy Carr makes a joke about gypsies, and I don't think he hates gypsies. I don't think it's like I don't watch Star Wars and go, man, that's I don't think that person's actually a stormtrooper. I don't think Hans Gruber is actually a bank robber. We've got this thing where comedians get this thing where this must reflect their real views when they're just telling a joke. Yeah.
This same thing happened with Chappelle. The trans crowd is gunning for Chappelle because he made some trans jokes. And again, the argument comes down to, well, when is a joke and when is a joke not a joke? And you can argue context is key. It's not like Dave Chappelle standing on stage and directing hateful speech at trans people. And he's not honing in on one particular trans person. It's jokes based on the stereotypes more than anything else. I don't see him angrily talking about trans people or advocating anything against them in his private life or even on his social media or anything like that. So from what I've seen, it's just jokes that go into the shows. Trans people don't like it. They don't like it. You don't have to like it. There's plenty of jokes about women, plenty of jokes about men, plenty of jokes about white men, black men, Asian men, women. There's jokes about everyone out there. So everyone gets hit at some point. Everyone. I can't name a single demographic that is safe from any jokes, especially since we got guys like Gervais and Jimmy Carr on the scene and Frankie Boyle, and rightfully so. I think if we silence the comedians, it's a scary thought that we're going to go down that route.
Well, it can't end because humour is subjective. Yeah. What offends me isn't what offends you. What I find funny isn't not what you find funny. And when we look at that, like Steve Hughes, another great comedian, if you know Steve Hughes, he always talks about, you can't say that I'm offended. So what? Nothing happens. Nothing happens when you get offended. I love that he made that joke of this. I was at a comedy gig and this guy made a joke about the Lord and I was offended. And the next day I woke up and I had leprosy. And he mentioned he gets offended when he sees boy bands. And I'm like, it's fantastic because it's so true. There are things that offend me that have nothing to do with comedy or humor or anything like this. And it's like, at that stage, where do you stop if this is where you're going with anyone that makes a joke out of your taste? Again, it's that thing of my opinion is more important than anyone else's opinion.
That's what it comes down to. I think there's a big difference between not finding a joke funny and finding it offensive. I didn't think the G.I. Jane, it's a cheap shot, it's an obvious joke. I don't think it's that funny. I wouldn't have laughed. I didn't laugh at it as I watched it. I don't think it's an offensive thing. I'm not sitting there going, oh my God, the poor sufferers of alopecia. And I'm not thinking that. And I don't think many people who had alopecia think that. Likewise, I'm certain there are a large percentage of trans people who watch Chappelle stuff and find it funny, and a large percentage who don't find it funny. But then there'll be the more vocal percentage who want him cancelled. They shouldn't be able to say that sort of stuff. And that, for me, that's all attention seeking. That's what I feel it is.
Do you think there's a general trend of this getting worse? 'Cause on face value, it is, and I'm very vocal in that. But or is it the fact that social media just attracts the most vocal of the minority? Like the complainers are the ones that get traction because negativity tends to be more, addictive.
Exactly. We know this in terms of business. Bad reviews travel faster and quicker than good reviews do. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. We love negativity. We love to spread more negativity. Negativity goes viral way more than positivity does, which is why social media can be such a toxic thing for people. And I think it is. Okay. This is where I can't decide one or the other. Is it getting worse, or are we just more exposed to it because of social media and virality and things like that now? I can't tell you which one it is.
Both.
It probably is both, but I do know the complaints are getting worse, are getting pansier. For people in newspapers such as The Independent and The Guardian to be writing opinion pieces that have whittled that down to race, for me, that's kind of racist, really.
So
to be focusing on the race of those two guys over the actual incident, that's kind of racist.
Well, that's the thing, right? We spoke about this before the Bond debate. Another cheap plug, go listen to it. But we spoke about if you had a female James Bond, is that more sexist? Because it's like saying you can't carry your own franchise. Don't worry, you can have ours though. As opposed to Wonder Woman, which actually sold out box offices. I haven't seen as many race things. I've seen a lot of the gender things with this, but with the race things, like a black guy starts a black guy on stage. What is the complaint? What have you seen?
The one that really annoyed me the most, because it's such a pointless thing, is this lady on, I want to say it was either GB News or it was or Good Morning Britain, something like that. It was a brief thing on Twitter, and this lady was saying that Jada Pinkett Smith does not deserve to be attacked. She wasn't attacked. Especially being a woman of colour. And again, that wasn't even in question. He didn't say anything about her race. And it's coming from a man of the same race as well.
Yes.
If there's any irrelevant point to bring up at that, that's the most irrelevant one. Wasn't taking the mickey out of her sex, out of her gender, out of anything else. Literally just took the mickey out of the fact she had a shaved head, linked it to something very, very obvious. Could have chosen any film where there's been a good few where a female had a shaved head. Could have called her Ripley. Could have done anything, really. So what was that? What was that absolutely terrible film in the 90s where the bird had a shaved head? It was like the first of the female action films.
I don't know.
That's going to haunt me now. I'm going to have to think of that.
I'll get a message at 2 a.m. from you. I got it.
It's going to happen. I'm going to text you once and Google it.
With that, you said about the message was just about this, and it was the problem was that she was a woman of color getting attacked in those words. But if we look at history and precedents of, say, Ricky Gervais, who often hosts this and attacks everybody in very comical fashion, is singling her out as better not make a joke about her because she's female and of color and has this condition. Does that make her stand out more? Does that make it more unequal? Because it's fair game for everybody else. If you took the mick out of Jimmy Carr not paying his taxes or Leonardo DiCaprio for a reason, you wouldn't have this thing. It's more unfair to single her out. It's like that someone coming to go, don't make a joke about them. They can't handle it. There's a negative connotation there, probably more so than just having the joke.
Exactly. And we forget he came out and he told jokes about multiple other people before he got to her. Multiple other people. I didn't see the whole thing, but he's telling jokes about other actors, and it's not specific jokes. He's taking the mick out of anyone that's sat in that front row. You're kind of fair game, really. And same with Gervais. There's an argument that no one got up and slapped. This was a terrible thing. I'm not reading these articles because I know they'll annoy me and they'll ruin my day. But one of the things was Ricky Gervais told all these horrific jokes, didn't get slapped, so that must be white privilege. Well, most of Gervais's jokes were about all of Hollywood being paedophiles. So anyone who got up and slapped him is kind of exposing himself as a paedophile. You know? So there's more paedophile privilege than white privilege.
A sweaty Prince Andrew comes up and slaps him across the face. Like a wet hand.
So that's why. And again, it's so ridiculous. Okay, we know most of what he was saying was true, but it's so ridiculous and over the top that you know it's a joke. And it's so close to the edge, which is why people get uncomfortable, which is why there's that super famous clip of everyone in their seat going, as he's telling all these jokes. As well. And that's why it's funny. Just so close to the edge. So the fact that we're now doing this massive, massive overreaction to protect Jada Pinkett Smith over the tamest possible joke, when she's already come out in interviews saying she doesn't care. She owns the condition. No one can say anything. For a split second where she rolls her eyes as her husband is pissing himself laughing, again, at a pretty tame, terrible joke.
Yeah.
I want to know what happened in that split second that the camera goes away, that we see her reaction. He's laughing, we see her reaction, and next thing we know, he's on stage. I want to see what happened in that split second, because that's going to give the game away. Whether it was staged or whether he's genuinely angry, whether she's genuinely upset. That's the bit I want to see. That missing split second. That's like a full-on conspiracy thing. That one. That's what I want to see.
And that's what we'll never see, right? Because the Academy Awards, more people are going to watch the Academy Awards next year. I'll tell you that right.
We'll never see.
That footage will never be released.
100%. That's the Pentagon footage from that side that we didn't see. That's the 9/11 from above. It's the Kennedy from the grassy knoll. We're never going to see that footage.
It's the shot from the grassy knoll. Oh my God, we've made Prince Andrew jokes. Like, literally, if no one can say we don't live and breathe our argument.
Bro.
You know, like, we think these jokes should be insensible. We've landed, in 25 minutes, we've landed about 5 or 6 of them. You know, but why... I sort of asked this earlier on, but why do you think things are getting tamer? Why is it that now that things are getting hijacked much faster, much quicker? Because it wasn't that long ago where we had Little Britain on, and you know that you would watch some of them back, and it's in a space of 10 years, and certainly in the space of the last 2-3 years, where we've seen this acceleration of people getting cancelled for not even things he did immediately, like Will Smith, things that he did 5-10 years ago when times were different. Like, what's your take on why this is changing so much, and why there's this big push for, let's call a spade, is more minority groups doing this? Like, and I'm not saying they're right or wrong. Like, some of them have absolutely fair points, but you very rarely see white male guys come up and have these sort of big arguments. It tends to always be. And is that media spin, or do you think that's generally something that's being increased?
I think there's two elements to this, one of which is pretty deep. I would say we're seeing a lot more of this coming from minority groups away from your stereotypical middle-class straight white male. So that includes straight white males in any other sort of demographic, whether that is sliding into trans or LGBTQIA plus, whatever they want to identify as, whatever they put themselves in. I think we're seeing a lot more of this because people are more detached and isolated from each other more than ever. Even though we're more connected by social media, we're getting less and less relevant dopamine hits from physical touch, physical connection, actual genuine validation. And suddenly we get these little heart signs show up on our phones saying people are liking what we're saying. That becomes our only dopamine source. We want more and more and more of it. It enables crazier and crazier behavior. There's some, I won't say it on this because I don't want the thing to get shut down, but there's some mad stuff going on in America right now. People arguing over something. So for those who aren't too sure, just look up what Mayor DeSantis is doing. There's some people arguing over stuff that should not be argued over. Like a rational human being would look at what they're arguing over and go, no, you're dead wrong. You're dead wrong in this. But people won't, because now they've been enabled. Social media is enabling them. Social media, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whoever the hell it is, doesn't necessarily have to provide a platform to the people who are right. It just has to provide a platform, and its shareholders want the users to stay on for longer, and then more ad revenue comes in and things like that. And that's just the nature of the beast. That is what it is. There's never going to be a social media platform that really actually only puts out and promotes the truth and positive things, because it's not going to last. It's not going to work. So on one aspect is coming from there, which is the deeper answer. On the other one, it's, oh God. It is just a case of some people are just absolute, I don't want to say nutters. Some people have just lost direction of what's important in life, of where they want to go. Things aren't going right for them. And so brain starts slipping, direction starts going.
I suppose those people, like, you very rarely hear the people that are making these big arguments very rarely come from people that are more successful than the incident that they're complaining about.
Yes.
You don't get the head of Pixar saying Mr. with the hair's a problem. You know, you don't, it's people who maybe aren't happy with where things are, they've not no direction in their own life, trying to bring down people above them. There's that old phrase, you rarely ever criticize someone more successful than you. Now, I know that for a fact that's not true from instances in my life, but you tend to see that sort of thing. And I suppose as well, going on to your first point, the more separated we are from other humans and the more we're locked down, the more we don't realize there's a human on the other side of these arguments, or a collection of humans on the other side of these arguments. So we say things, we make judgments, we criticize without thinking it's just an Instagram person, a bot, or Will Smith and Jada Smith, you know, or whoever, insert person here, that may actually feel something about what you're saying. And you can say, well, Chris Rock didn't think about that when he made the joke, but the difference is Chris Rock's making a joke. These people are making a statement. And that's a very, 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 very different connotation.
Yeah. And the argument comes back of, well, how can you actually know what the difference is? And yeah, maybe you can't. Maybe maybe there's a percent of Chris Rock's brain that's sitting there going, I hate people with alopecia. Oh, good, Jada Pinkett Smith's in, I'm going to take a look out of her. We know that's not going to be the case, but obviously we'll never know for sure. But in terms of the difference between a statement and a joke, it's pretty obvious. This comedian on stage, I can't imagine that he's gone through the rounds, years and years of touring and promoting and grinding and paying for all these dodgy clubs, and just to get to a point where he can now, you know, where we
finally my moment. He's in the front row. His
rhetoric, his manifesto can be said. I can't imagine that's the case at all. And I think if you do, you're putting way too much energy into this that you need to. It's fairly obvious what is a statement and what is a joke. Who it's coming from, of course, context, situation is all key. Some people are just terrible at telling jokes. Some people are terrible at reading the room. Some people just make piss poor, offensive jokes because, again, they don't get much validation in their own life, and this is their way to be heard. The attention they get may not necessarily be good attention, but bad attention is better than no attention for some people, you know?
Do you think there's a reversing this trend of everything being politicized and agenda orientated? Is there a way that this gets better? Or is this something that's becoming the norm? The new norm for use of it?
Yeah, the only way it's going to change, shut down all social media and media platforms. It's the only way it's going to change. Because media needs to feed its shareholders. And people buy based on emotion, and they don't buy based on positive emotion only. They buy on negative emotion. So it's in the media's interest to continue peddling the most negative stuff, even if that means making stuff up, even if that means twisting stuff to a certain narrative. Because an article that starts talking about is the slap based on a race thing is going to get read. And if it's going to get read, that's more time spent on the website, more time spent on the platform. Shares, adverts go up, ad revenue goes up. So that's
I suppose we're perpetuating it as well, aren't we? Like discussing it from the other side.
Technically, we are part of it. Are part of it, you know? So that's never going to change. And that's become what social media platforms are now. Yes, it's a way to connect to people. Yes, it's a way to document your own life, which everyone seems to want their own documentary made about them now. And now they can do that just through their Instagram stories rather than on Netflix. And the same thing. It's the same circle. I'm sure most of these platforms, Facebook, MySpace, things like that, were started with good intentions in mind before they realized the only way to make this grow is to do what media has done up until this point. Otherwise, the platform's dead. And why would you want the platform to die? You wouldn't. That's why we never
and some of these things are algorithm based as well, right?
Exactly.
Like they're not human based initially, and then they've grown through automated algorithms and go, oh, this works. Let's keep it doing this, and it just becomes a juggernaut, like the way it is now. I mean, like to close this off, because I know you haven't got a crazy amount of time. Like, what do you recommend people do on an individual level for these sort of things? So we spoke about men's mental health a little bit last time, and social media. We both said in that episode that is a big social media play a big part of that. So what do people do on an individual level to sort of not get caught up in this, not get angry by those articles, not get signed up? What do people do?
The big thing is to stop and ask yourself a couple of questions. How does this actually affect my life? First off, how is this making me feel? How does this actually affect my life? In that order. Because like I say, some of those articles yesterday, my God, if we went back to 2016, I would have argued every single one of them all day, lost the whole day, been angry all day, not won the argument because you're never going to win the argument anyway. It's absolutely pointless. Thank God I don't do that now, because I've learned to go, okay, right there, what's my initial knee-jerk reaction? Stop. How does this actually make me feel? Okay, the article makes me feel a bit annoyed. Not because I disagree with it or it's attacking me, it's because I think dumb people are going to read that and share it, and it's going to become the official narrative. How does it actually affect my life? Well, it doesn't. It doesn't. Apart from this, I'm not going to be sat down with anyone for the rest of my life talking about the merits of, was it a race attack? Was it a female attack? Whatever the hell. It's just a slap between two actors who I don't know, I've never met, I'm never going to meet. They're not going to have any impact on my life apart from Chris Rock has some phenomenal stand-up material. Everyone's coming out saying he's a terrible comedian because it was a terrible joke. No. Chris Rock's one of the most well-known comedians on the planet for a reason. Watch his stuff. It's phenomenal. Will Smith, one of the greatest actors of our generation, one of the most popular cultural figures of our generation, from Fresh Prince onwards, and rightfully so.
Great.
Other than that, how do they affect my life apart from pure entertainment? They don't. And that's what this is. Watching this slap, making a meme out of it, talking about it, it's just more entertainment. Have to keep it positive. How many people will be sat on podcasts, news shows, doing their own social media posts where they are really, really analysing this and getting angry about it? I'd rather do this, come on Instagram for 35 minutes and have a laugh about it and come away with a much more positive mindset than the person who wrote that article about it being a racist thing in The Guardian. That must have been a bad day for them. That must have been.
Yeah.
They must have had a rough night.
100%. Like, did anyone before this go into this thinking that Will Smith wasn't a little bit of a weird dude? One of his kids is called Willow. It's like he's naming people after himself. I sorry to anyone who watches this or listens to this when it goes up as a podcast and who's named their kid after them, but it takes a kind of personality to do that, doesn't it?
You could have, a couple of years ago, because I watch his films, I don't follow him that closely in his personal life. You could have put a gun to my head and said, right, what religion is Will Smith? I probably would have guessed Scientology, like most of them, like most of the weird ones, because there are some weird elements to him, But...
that's Hollywood for you. And I do think whether this was a race thing or whether this is I think as the, for the use of a better term, the woke agenda goes, this is probably one of the minor things. It's one of many. The scary thing is the precedent that says that violence is okay for someone of status. It's okay to punch a comedian now. If I don't like a joke, I complain about it online.
It's okay.
Now,
we're
permission to go and punch him in the
gonna
face.
see it. We are going to see it. So many comedians, like that guy you sent me yesterday, I forget his name, but in that video says, I've got a tour coming up. I don't want to get punched.
Yeah.
And so
I
people don't make
right?
jokes about people's wives in the audience then. But don't go to a comedy show then. Every comedy show
was amazing.
To, people in the front row, you're fair game. You are fair game.
And I would also argue here, using that video I sent you as a perfect example. We had that guy who was in a wheelchair. He talked about one of his shows, and he picked on him every single time because he was there and stereotypes, and he's an offensive comedian. And he came up afterwards and went, "Thank you for treating me like everybody else," which proves our point that if he joked about everyone in the front row and avoided him, then he would have felt more left out than if he was part of it. When I go to a comedy gig, I sit in the front row. I want to be picked on. It's the point. It is funny. Yeah. And why do we think that the people of minorities, for use of a better term, can't handle it in the same way that I want to? They might want to get picked on as well. And if you're going to go with that approach, you're going to disappoint. Anyway, you're not going to please everyone. You're going to not pick on people that want to be part of the crew, or you're going to pick on the wrong person. You've got to make an omelette. You've got to break a few eggs, and it is a worse precedent when we do it that we can't let it make up anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Like I say, that never stops. The line gets blurrier and blurrier. You just got to accept it. It's comedy. It's not like you're going into your office and your boss is telling you can't work here because you've got alopecia. Entirely different thing entirely. It's not like people in the street are attacking you because you've got alopecia. It's a famous comedian in the middle of a comedy skit. Same as if going to a comedy club to see someone. Like, you've entered that environment, you should kind of know that this is not, it's not a Macmillan coffee morning where you're going to talk about your favourite book and eat some cake. It's going to be, hopefully, a hardcore environment. Because some of the best comedians, that's what they do. It's what they do. We take the mick out of each other. Even then, I forget what Jordan Peterson calls it. It's kind of like a trust thing where guys josh each other. It's to see if you can take it. And if you can't take it, you're kind of highlighting you're not a trustworthy individual. But don't quote me fully on that. I'm paraphrasing. It might not have even been Jordan Peterson. But I thought it was quite an interesting thing. That's why I can see that. Male work environment comes up.
Yeah, and this is where ribbing comes up in so many environments. I mean, we both work for somewhere where there was initiations, and people would go, "Oh, that's terrible," and I go, "No," because when you stand bump and grind into a 1 kilo dumbbell, you don't really worry about whether your split squat's good or not. Sorry, that was Tarek who did that. I had to sing "Row, row, row, you boat," but like you don't worry about that. I think it brings camaraderie. It brings that element of letting your guard down and being relaxed. And you create people that are more on edge when no one can take a mick out of each other. Everyone's wondering, like, if I say what I feel here, or even a joke that I don't feel, I'm going to get pounced upon. I'm just led to this very anxious society that can't be truly authentic to themselves. And that's obviously a bigger conversation probably for another day.
Yeah.
I know you haven't got much time, so to finish this off, it's not a podcast, so I don't know how to do that. Where can people find you? Because you can just click above it. Although this will go up on the show. Top 3 offensive comedians. Who are your 3 favourite offensive?
My top guy at the moment, I think he's genius. Andrew Schultz. He has been on Rogan several times. He's got his own series special. I want to say Netflix. I could be wrong. I watch him. He became my favourite lockdown comedian. I thought his jokes were amazing. Most of his social media accounts, his TikTok especially, it's not even footage of his stand-up. It's his stand-up where he's working the room. And you see some phenomenal interactions between people where he really crosses the line. But there's never any malice in there. There's never any hatred in there. He knows when to bring it back. He knows when to dial it in. He is phenomenal. I can't wait for him to come to the UK, and I hope he does, because I think his stuff will translate into the UK as well. I really hope he comes over. After that, it's Gervais. Gervais's way to push that. And if Schultz didn't exist or he weren't doing that work the room stuff, Gervais would be top by far.
He's cancel free, right? You can't cancel Gervais because he doesn't care.
Exactly. And for a moment, he cancelled himself when he was like, Twitter can't handle me because it's only 148 characters or something like that. And then he came back, and he's still, even his response yesterday was just, didn't have to say anything, just had to retweet. Did you see what you did? You see what this yesterday? So there's several Gervais fan club sites on Twitter that post clips of The Office, extras, his stand-up all the time. And they posted the clip of, and I think this was done ages ago, they posted the clip of The Office where he's in a pub with some of the staff. He's talking about this guy he knows, and he goes, and his wife's got alopecia. So not a happy home life. And that's it. It's just a brief 1-second clip from The Office. And all Gervais did yesterday was just retweet that specific clip. I'm like, mate, you're a genius. You know how to push the buttons without actually getting involved either. But his stuff is so offensive, but so funny and over the top. I don't see how you could get genuinely offended.
Do you think Ricky Gervais makes a really important message with this for people that may be in the field who may get cancelled for whatever reason? It's a phrase. It's like breaking the internet. You don't break the internet. Cancelling is just a group of people going, I don't want to buy your show.
Yeah.
But often those people sell out. Like, are people that are cancelled really cancelled, or is it just utter bullshit?
It's tough
And
to
he's
tell.
ready for their opinion. He just doesn't give a shit, so it doesn't affect his life.
Yeah. It's the people that have been cancelled, like as in there's hardly any trace of them on the internet. They all got banned off of social media. Like hopefully I'll say his name quick and I won't get banned because this was my second Instagram strike. But Alex Jones of Infowars, famously cancelled off of all the stuff. His website got more traffic visits than ever. If you take his website down, he'll do, I don't know, in-person meets. He'll just can grow and grow and grow. Because there's something he has that people...
Rhinos.
Yeah, exactly. Other guys like Milo Yiannopoulos, okay, less of an audience, less of a well-known public figure or even a liked public figure. Cancel that guy and he kind of went into obscurity and you don't really hear from him anymore. I don't know, maybe it's the opposite direction, I don't know. But you can't really, there's always a way to find the people that you want to find. If there's someone you still want to listen to, there'll be a way to listen to them. So we can cancel them on the mainstream things. But then, if anything, for me, that's more dangerous because then you push things underground and that's where the darker movements come from. So I don't think anyone should get banned. Like, be ridiculed, be publicly ridiculed, be reprimanded. But by banning them from public spaces, that just, if anything, that creates more of a pressure cooker environment and more hate at the same time.
It creates hate, and also I think it creates more suspicion, right? I looked at this with COVID media. The more you censor alternative opinions, the more people question why you're censoring these opinions, which breeds actually less trust in the mainstream opinion. Yeah. And so the more you censor people, the more support they're going to be rallied behind.
There was a big thing recently. I forget whoever the latest person was to get chucked off of Twitter, but they were saying this person got chucked off of Twitter and ISIS's main account is still active on there. Like, that's a double standard. I'm like, good. I want to know what ISIS is saying on their Twitter account. I kind of want to stay in the loop here. I don't want to know what they're doing in the shadows. I want to know what they're saying in public. You know, it's so stupid. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Just to close off, I cannot believe I found such a perfect image of a half back of my head for that caption. Like, it's meant to be.
So mate, this is how good Hollywood and the Illuminati are. It was already scripted. They knew it would get down to this level, us talking. You had the perfect head picture already.
You say Keith, my photographer, was part of the Illuminati, and just look over there.
No. It's always the ones you suspect.
Right, man. Thank you very much, Kevin. I'll let you get on with the rest of the day.
That was so good.
Good chat as always. I was going to say this off there, but I might say now. In June, I'll be back in London, so let's actually arrange a proper catch.
Oh boy, yeah, see if we go, bruv. 100%.
Awesome, mate. Thanks, guys, for listening. Thanks all for joining. Speak to you soon.